Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. We had a huge important week for Palantir because of earnings, but I'd even say more so of what happened with all the press releases, news, and partnerships to catch up on, making this a really crazy hectic week. So the video is all put together for you if you missed many of the uploads that I had this week. Now looking at the stock first, closing the week up around 40%, so a monster week here percentage-wise. The big catalyst obviously was earnings in the beginning. Now if it'll completely sustain here for a longer period of time, we'll see how it plays out, but I already know the screamings of valuation and insider selling is starting to come out of the woodwork after any significant move upwards, so we'll just have to play it out. Now onto the news itself, starting with earnings. I made a whole video there covering the big metrics and my thoughts, but for those who want the TLDR but note you should really fully understand your investments to know what you're doing. But either way, we got a re-acceleration of growth in revenue at the quarterly level at 20% year over year, but do note overall for the full year growth from 2022 to 2023, it's only 17%. And then the breaking further down on commercial versus government, the main story is commercial here, especially on US, with 70% year over year growth for the quarter, but government is not that high. Now, guidance on revenue, we did actually see a decrease for Q1 2024 in growth rate for year over year. That's expected at only $612 to $616 million, which is only a 16 to 17% guidance. But for the full year guidance, this is what the market, I think, noticed, being 19 to 20% annual growth for 2023 to 2024. So we will hold Palantir to these numbers for now, and maybe optimistically they're actually sandbagging this and they'll beat it, and then raise guidance throughout the year for the full year. Now, customer count was also the big story too for commercial end at 497 customers total. It wasn't 500, which was my most ideal case, but the surprise on earnings honestly helped even it out in my opinion here, since it's balanced out with the revenue. And plenty of other great metrics too, showing the narrative appears to be working and turning around, as well as AIP bootcamps appear to be working too and becoming a major driver of growth for the company. And then their financial health too is still there with a growing cash pile while their operational cash flow keeps it accumulating. And then check out my full video though for the details as well as on the earnings call. And if you'd also like management's thoughts here, check out my video on the CEO letter, which also has some overlapping metrics on earnings, but does give a longer term perspective of showing Palantir's journey from where they began to where they are today. Now, onto another big push of the narrative on Palantir are analysts. We know there are the bulls and bears, and an onsite right after earnings had adjustments in mostly the positive direction for price targets and some of their ratings, with one actually still holding out here who's very familiar. Now, I won't go through every single one of them, but probably the most noteworthy are the familiar, like Bank of America's Mariana raising from 21 to 24, and then Wedbush's Dan Ives raising from $25 to $30. And then we also had William Blair there holding tight, not budging at all, but just for comedy, I'd say. And feel free to check out that video for all the individual ones since it's a long list. But the bigger point is that Wall Street is at least acknowledging Palantir in some respect. We're not saying they're a Wall Street darling, of course, but their eyes are on them and can be a factor for more widespread recognition into the market. Now, the first big news too, deal-wise, Palantir won a $650 million contract from the government. This is the United States here for the General Services Administration, or GSA. It's for 5 years until 2029, and this was honestly a huge surprise right after earnings getting awarded. Now, the initial video I made, I kind of jumbled up my words and numbers, so 650 over 5 years is $130 million a year, or around $32.5 million a quarter. Now, some were saying this is a split contract onwards, but from my perspective, when I look up the contract number, I do actually get other awards to other vendors, but they all have their own individual contract amount awards here that are different, and these range a lot from a few $100,000 to a few $1 million, but no one else had the same huge number like Palantir. And if you also go to fpds.gov, you'll see directly to Palantir as the winner here for the full $650 million awarded for them. So I believe this is truly the full amount going towards Palantir as long as they hit their numbers, and the umbrella contract idea is just for a larger amount for the GSA to distribute as needed to other vendors. So Palantir just seems to be a big bulk of it. And then continuing with the price action news, it comes up on Jim Cramer's lightning round. We do get another notable quote here that Karp is the Dave Portnoy of cybersecurity. I can't even begin to interpret this statement, so I'll leave it up to you at least, but at least we get a laugh out of it from those more familiar with the company. And then we also get a quick here from Kathy Wood scooping up a few more shares, almost 2 million of them. So she has a reputation of the buy high, sell low joke, but who knows? It's just more big money to do as they please with. Then we also get an awesome football demo, in my opinion, for AIP. And obviously, as the Super Bowl is around the corner, I think it's a good way to showcase this. Their demo showed in a relatable way how the ontology and AIP can play together and assist a coach to make decisions play by play, possibly. It was cool because the graphics here were much more updated than the last football one that we saw, as well as showing the actual inner workings of the data flowing onwards and working together, as well as how the individual players can be analyzed and their metrics keep feeding into the loop. So my thoughts overall is that Palantir Palantir can make their way into the more mainstream sports and possibly start showing up there. Not saying that this was the point of the demo, of course, since they're still reaching out to enterprises as their main target there, and they even bring it up like, oh, can you do this for your business? But it's not so far into the future, in my opinion, or even a big stretch. Now, we also get to the point that we all know was bound to happen, insider selling. I did a couple videos just due to the timing of them coming out. You can either check out those videos for each transaction or just go to the SEC filings if you'd like, just to look over them in more detail. But my overall thoughts are this is not a surprise due to the trading plans, but also the amounts aren't alarmingly large. It'd obviously be nice to see a buy at some time, especially when we look back at the price before, but they still have this vested interest in the company performing well, so I'm not concerned at all at these amounts or the size of them. Then we also get this oil partnership announcement with Bapco, and this is for the island of Bahrain. We unfortunately don't get a dollar amount here, but it's kind of a commercialist, government-ish partnership, considering that these are owned by the kingdom's government. Now, they aren't the biggest oil producer in the world by a stretch, but they are in the Middle East and do work with the Saudi Arabian government too closely. So it's only around 54 million barrels a year or so, or around 150,000 barrels a day, while a Saudi Arabia is like tens of millions per day. So I'm just hoping it's a way to showcase their value and maybe spread to more oil kingdoms. The region is tricky sometimes politically when it comes to U.S. interests, but I'd say militarily, it's still vital there, obviously, for the United States, and economic diplomacy can be a better play here with Palantir maybe playing a part in it and just showing how valuable they can be. But either way, Palantir has proven customer relationships in this industry, so more to come, hopefully, just because of the value they can bring. Then another partnership announcement here, so they keep on going. Palantir entered an MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, with Voyager Space. Essentially, they're just saying they're working together. But this is like, say, the first publicized commercial space partnership that we've seen come from them. Now, the most intriguing part of the press release is that they're also trying to help serve NATO and the Five Eyes, and we don't hear too much about NATO-specified business here, just individual member countries. So if they're trying to go after this coordinated and tied together system, and of course it'd be large, it won't be a surprise if Palantir is able to power this alongside Voyager. And I did also want to note Voyager Space is a smaller, younger company, so even if things don't work out for them, I'd say the worst case scenario for Palantir is that at least they had the opportunity to have R&D and continue building up use cases in space, which is already on top of what Palantir has built, like Edge AI solutions. And then Time, they released a major article here on how tech giants turned Ukraine into an AI war lab. But the narrative is mainly focused on Palantir, actually, surprisingly, and say 60 to 70% of it. I made a whole video there detailing the Palantir part, so check it out in more depth. But it shows how close Palantir has gotten with Ukraine's government, as well as the standing they have with making sure that they can get the things that they want out of it, as in the value, and they have routine visits with them, and they ensure that they're working off of them and improving their products. And they have these very intimate meetings that they noted with government officials where these employees actually have a chance to actually work hand in hand with them, as well as the value that they're actually getting out of them. Now, there was an awesome quote too I want to put up, but it just goes to show how they can supercharge one operator to do the work of hundreds of analysts before. And more so, the big things is that Ukraine's government is looking to do what tech companies and Palantir can bring to them beyond the war, into the post-war and Reconstruction era. And this is to turn them into a tech hub here, which they've said as they're one of their goals. But this piece overall is a great way to show Palantir is embedding themselves into the government to operate and rebuild when the time comes. So lots of news beyond earnings. Let me know if you were able to keep up with everything throughout the week. I was making almost 3 videos a day for some of these, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.